Hey, good evening, everybody. It is 10:05 p.m. Central Standard Time on December the 19th, 2018. Don't want to be out here too long tonight, but first let's take care of the housekeeping. You can reach Once Wayward Brethren at area code 414. The number is 982-5604. Again, that's area code 414-982-5604. You can also, this particular broadcast is being videotaped so that in the event that there are connectivity issues, you'll be able to view it later. It will be posted not only on my personal timeline, but it will also be posted out on the Once Wayward Brethren Facebook page and on the Once Wayward YouTube page. We ask that you like and follow and share if you find it appropriate. The information and the material that's presented on your timelines on Facebook. Again, that's Once Wayward Brethren Ministries Facebook page. And then, of course, we ask that you subscribe, if you would be so kind, out on the Once Wayward YouTube page. Like I said, I don't plan on being out here very long today. Just a lot of things that have been going on and a lot of things that I've been thinking about. You know, here recently, I did a short series on what's wrong with the church, and I also did an even shorter series on apologetics. And apologetics, of course, is being able to take and to defend what you find in the Bible. The reason why I presented those two things is because it has struck me rather odd that there's such a falling away as to what's going on with the church and the fact that churches are emptying out. And the fact is that I was reading something here not too long ago. I want to say it was written by a guy named Ken Ham that said that basically that the millennial generation basically doesn't they weren't brought up in the church, and so therefore they're not going to church. And if they have gone to church, that a vast majority of them, once they turn 20 years old, tend to fall away. And the reason why is because of the fact that they don't have a solid foundation. Mr. Ham went on to further say that we don't believe that the Bible is actually God's word anymore, and the reason why is because of the fact that too many times the effect of the Bible is what's being sought. Paul called it preaching for people with itchy ears, or people's ears were itching, and the reason why is because of the fact that we have gotten away from teaching the foundational text. We have gotten away from teaching the entire story. The book of the Bible, and the reason I'm talking this way is because of the fact that over the course, and just to give you a little bit more background, over the course of the last year and a half, I have undertaken reading the Bible from cover to cover, and it happens to be the Henry Morris edition. It's an apologetics Bible, and it's the Henry Morris edition, and Henry Morris is considered to be the father of modern creationism, and because of that he has some very interesting highlights. And so I've taken the time not only to read the Bible but all of the footnotes, looked at all of the maps, and continuing to go on. And in this year and a half's journey, I've just now gotten to the book of, I'm just about done with the book of 2 Corinthians, and hope to finish this thing out and be done with having read everything that's in this particular version of the Bible, not later than the end of February, because of the fact that I find that there are some very interesting insights as to what's going on. But again, the biggest thing is that the reason why we have such a hard time is because of the fact that today, in today's society, we're not dealing with creationism. We don't want to understand that God is the ultimate cause and effect, is the cause of is the cause of every effect. That everything that happens began with God, and the effect of whatever it is that God has done. We find in the first chapter of the book of Genesis, it says, "Then God said," and then it says, and then it says whatever it was that God said. For instance, "Let there be light," and then it was so. And then at the end of that that first day, he said it was good. Okay, so the thing is that we're not able to we're not looking at God that way anymore. And because of that, and because of the fact that we're not teaching that, because as I said during the series on what's wrong with the church, we've gotten to the place now where we have gotten away from teaching what's in the Bible, and we've gotten to the point where we are, quote unquote, as preachers, more life coaches than we are anything else. And the truth of it is that if we were really going to be honest about it, we are actually, each and every one of us, sojourners traveling, trying to make it from point A to point B. And so, yes, I may have some experiences that you don't have, but that doesn't make me, quote unquote, or qualify me, quote unquote, as a life coach. That is a very human term, and it's a very humanistic term, saying that I have this thing, I have life, and I understand it, and I'm able to talk to you about it, and all of these other wonderful things. We need to understand that as far as it goes, all of the knowledge belongs to God, and each and every one of us as human beings, we specialize in certain areas as far as what our knowledge is. When we go to school, for instance, we go to school, go to university or what have you, and we may get a degree, say for instance in history or biblical studies or archaeology or engineering. And yes, even though there's been that during that time in school, there's this learning of other things, like for instance taking an English class or a math class when you're a historian, being able to read literature or poetry as an elective that's going to get you some credit so that you graduate. Those things happen, and because those things happen, those things are outside of the purview of what it is that we're specializing in, but we are specialists. We have to realize, though, that God doesn't just specialize. God is the omnipotent, omniscient, omnipotent creator of everything. And because of that, we have to understand that there's some things that we just don't understand. Because here's the deal, and I'll give you this as a case in point. Charles Darwin, who wrote wrote The Origin of the Species, and is the progenitor, so to speak, of the theory of evolution, was an agnostic. Not necessarily an atheist, but an agnostic. And according to the history, that he had an illness or something befall his very young daughter that changed him, because he had actually started out in the seminary, and then because of that, it changed. Because of what happened to his child, it changed his view as to what it was that people were doing, what it was that God, who it was that God was. And see, an agnostic is a person that believes that nothing is known or can be known about God, about his existence or his nature. And so that there's nothing really that is beyond the material phenomenon or natural phenomenon, and that is not the case. And so, as I said earlier, the thing is that we have to get back to that place as preachers. We have to get back to that place as people of God, where we actually accept God's version of what happened. There was the Big Bang Theory. There is the theory of evolution. There is the Pythagorean theorem. There are these things that are based on hypotheses, trial and error, that says that this is may or may not be what it is that God has done. So the thing is that the Bible sets for us in its, and again, my personal belief is that the Bible is infallible and inerrant in its original manuscripts. And because I believe that, then I have to understand that when I look at all of this, I have to understand that it is God that did this. God is the one that said all of these things. God is the one that said that he created man in his image and likeness. So we have to look at that and understand. The other thing the other things that I've been thinking about, because I've been watching the news, and I'm going to make this statement. Truth be told, I was looking at this whole thing with the Oscars and Kevin Hart, and I'm like, well, what in the world are we talking about? Because when do we become, we talk about being forgiving, we talk about wanting to be forgiven, we talk about not being hateful, we talk about all of these things, but yet here we are each and every day. When you look at social media, what's happening is that folks are dragging stuff up that happened 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and then using that to to take people, to pull them down, to tear them down, and what have you, but not allowing and saying that these people have grown, these people have gotten beyond wherever it is that, or whatever it is that thing is, and then saying that they were wrong when they said it. Then they need to apologize for it now, and all of that other. Well, here's the thing. Granted that, and I'm saying this because first and foremost, like most other people, I have friends that I know for a fact are homosexual. I know that I've got a couple of family members that are also homosexual. But the thing about it is that very simply, our job as Christians, our job as people, is to love these people, is to love everybody just the way that God loves us. It doesn't make any difference as to what their orientation is. My job as a preacher of the gospel is to preach the gospel just the way that I find it in the word, and to recount and say, thus saith the Lord. Now, here's the deal. Whatever decisions that you make based on, I've done my job, but whatever decisions you make, that's between you and God. I don't have a heaven or a hell to put you in, and I've said this before, because the thing is that here's the deal. No matter what you think, as far as what humanistic stuff is telling you, the truth of it is that according to the word that I read, not everybody's going to heaven. See, everybody's talking about I hear all of this stuff nowadays. Well, he was good, and so he's in heaven. No, truth be told, if he or she did not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, according to the Bible and according to my faith in God, I won't be seeing you. I'll see you, but you'll be on the other side of the chasm, according to what we find in the story of Lazarus and Dives. So you need to understand that there's not everybody's going to heaven. Not everybody believes the Bible. Our job as Christians is to tell people the good news, to share from them from the very beginning, and to help them to get a foundation, understanding that God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, so in all of that, what we also hear is that, well, this particular thing is 100 million years old. This is that. Well, see, here's the problem with that. If you mix, God is the one that created the science, and here's the thing. It is quite possible that because of the flood, the flood of Noah, that everything that has happened, that God used that same flood to make everything appear older than what it actually is. And we as men, using our theories and theorems, are able to then say, well, it was 10 million years ago that this happened, or 10 million years ago that happened. And truth be told, none of us were there. We believe that we know absolutely everything, when truth of it is that we still don't have answers for stuff. We just don't. So the thing is that if God has provided us an answer, now watch this. This is what's important. And this is really important, because the thing is that here it is. The Bible has existed and come forward through time in one form or another for the better part of 4,500 years. Somebody somewhere was inspired by God in order to write this thing, and there haven't been an awful lot of changes to it. Not only that, though, but the Bible in and of itself is a cohesive unit. So even though the Old Testament talks to the Jews and the New Testament talks to the Christians are supposed to read the Old Testament in order to understand what it is that's being said in the New. And the Jews who are reading the Old Testament have their hope in what it still don't quite understand, that their hope is what they find in the New Testament. But there are many now that are crossing that are going both ways and understanding and trying to get a fuller understanding of what it is that God is doing. So just wanted to talk about that for a minute. The other thing, and again, this is just kind of all over the map today. There was a state representative in California. His name was Joaquin Arambula, and he was jailed for 3 days. His children were taken from him, and he was jailed for 3 days because he spanked his children, and the child picked up the phone and called 911. This man lives in this man is a Christian. The child was not abused, but the child had the ability to pick up the phone, call the police, and put her father in jail. Thing is that Nowhere in the Bible does it say that the children are supposed to run the household. So the thing is that now what's happening is because of the fact that we have so relaxed our standards as far as what it is that we're teaching as far as the Bible is concerned, that and the fact that we don't open our mouths and raise our voice just as loud as all of these other groups are doing. The thing is that what's happening now is that we are now the ones being persecuted because of the fact that we have faith in God. Now, I'm going to make this statement and we'll close, but I do have more stuff and we'll try to get to that tomorrow. But the thing is that I want to say this. Regardless of what your political party or affiliation is, truth be told, each and every one of us has some very liberal views, and each and every one of us has some very conservative views. Most of our views line up in the middle, but it's when we are dealing with those people that are extremists that where the problems come in. Because when you're dealing with an extremist, there is no room for compromise, there is no room for dialogue, there is no room for agreement. So it's either what I believe or nothing. And because of the fact that we don't live, God has never been about, as far as our interactions with each other, he has never really been about all or nothing, because the thing is that except for the fact that we are supposed to love everybody like we want ourselves to be loved. So if that be the case, then there is no such thing as an extreme on either end. Now, there are some views that I have, case in point, I honestly believe that, and I'm going to say this, and it's not an attack again on homosexuals, but thinking about it, there was an article that I read in teaparty.org concerning the transgender contestant from Spain in the Miss Universe pageant. This person said, and I quote, that before they were born, that they knew that they were transgender, and that being transgender was not a factor of genitalia, but a factor of mindset and heart set. I find that rather difficult to believe, because even if we were talking about in human terms, first and foremost, Genesis chapter 1 verse 27 says that God made them male and female. Then the other part, and the one that's probably the most important, is that nowhere on a birth certificate have I ever seen from anywhere in this world where it says that somebody was, there's no male, female, transgender, cisgender, or whatever gender you happen to think that you are. There's no box for that on a birth certificate. No matter what it is that you think that you are, God has already said what you are. You are a human being in need of grace because of the sin of Adam. That each and every one of us needs to understand that it's not necessarily the physiological thing that happens to us, because again, it's not about physiological stuff, because unless of course you're born a hermaphrodite, then you're either male or born physiologically a male or physiologically a female. Now the question becomes, what has happened to you after you came out of the womb to change your thinking so that you believe that you know better than the God of all creation? May God bless and keep you, and we'll talk to you later.